Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. Hello, Ignite Intimacy community. This is your host, Miss Laura Aisha, and today I am in Buffalo, New York. I'm supporting my parents. They're selling the family home. So we have been going through lots of things and just getting ready for a big transition for all of us, all 7 of us, and including my daughter and the grandkids. And it's been powerful, powerful movements and bittersweet, and just giving thanks for this time and for life and for the opportunity to be here with you. I have been working on getting this guest today on the podcast for at least 6 months, I think. So it's really, really exciting that we're sitting here together today. I also have a thing for powerful women in business who are changing the world. So it's really exciting to have you on the line today, Meika Hollender, the CEO and co-founder of Sustain Natural. What is happening, lady?
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I got wind of your company and your work in 2017 and was just like, wow, okay, so here is this woman who is taking it into, your own hands to so fully honor the vagina. Thank you so much. And do the work that many others haven't done or they've been doing, but from my perspective, you're taking it to a next level and developing products that are really healthy for the vagina, and that we can all, for ourselves, our daughters, our aunties, our nieces, our, all the ladies in our lives, we can feel good about saying, check out Sustain. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Of course. Well, let's be honest. Were you first oh my God, this girl started a condom company with her dad. Yeah. And then maybe you realized all of the great stuff we're doing for vaginas. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
So let's talk about that to get started here, because today, just for our listeners, we're going to be diving into some great topics here. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, which I know this is something that Meika is really passionate about. Working with family, working with your dad in an area that is not typical for daughters to work with their fathers in, which I think is so dope. So we're going to dive into that. And we'll also be talking about sexual health, reclaiming sexuality, Meika's book, Get on Top. So this is a juicy, juicy conversation for all genders or non-gender conforming individuals. Listen in, because this is going to be a powerful conversation. And Meika, I think it's so juicy and amazing that you started a condom company with your dad. So take us back and give us some insight into what your relationship was like with your dad and your, childhood and teens. And then how did it lead to the company that you co-founded with your dad, Sustain?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with Sustain is a brand of all natural sex and period products. And we started out with condoms. So, as I'm sure most people listening, I grew up dreaming of starting a condom company with my dad. And at the ripe age of 26, I got really lucky and had this great opportunity. So I didn't actually grow up dreaming of it, but my family's been in the natural products business for over 30 years. My dad started a company called Seventh Generation. So I was always sort of aware of the natural product space. And the condom story was sort of interesting. I was finishing up business school and thinking about what I wanted to do next. And the interesting thing about condoms was really two things. One, I think everyone can sort of relate to the fact that the natural products movement is on fire, and we're thinking about what plastic is made out of, and should we even be using plastic in general, all the way to organic food and skincare products and shampoo. And it feels like almost every product category has sort of had its little eco-renaissance moment. Mm-hmm. And sexual wellness products and condoms specifically, I think, is an area where we hadn't been having that conversation. And I hadn't, frankly, thought about it much. But when you do think about it, it's something that's going inside one of the most absorbent parts of your body, and hopefully you're using condoms regularly. So you end up using a lot over your lifetime. And we really noticed that there was a huge lack of any sort of natural products innovation within the condom category. And then the thing that really got me hooked on the idea, and something that I'm probably equally, if not more passionate about, was looking at the statistics around women both buying condoms and using condoms. So most people don't realize, and I didn't actually either, that 40% of condoms are actually purchased by women. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the brands that have been doing this forever, women are completely left out of the conversation. Products aren't formulated with women's bodies in mind. And so it was a really great opportunity to not only create the first and the most sustainable condom in the world, but also focus on women and what women want in this category, and also how the product is formulated and how that's going to sort of interact with her vagina. Mm-hmm. So it was really like a marriage of those two ideas. And yeah, I got super lucky to have my dad, Jeffrey, who I call Jeffrey usually.
That's
be open to like going on this adventure with me, and he really helped get the business off the ground. Obviously has a lot of great knowledge. And from there, took the condom business, which was what we were focused on for the first 2 years, and really expanded into lubricants, wipes, tampons, period underwear, basically like everything you need for your sexual and reproductive health, and obviously as sustainable as humanly possible.
That's amazing. Well, and so I'm just curious, because I think it's a big deal. Women, 40% say the stat again, is it 40%
of male condoms are purchased by women?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So I'm not surprised by that, because I always make sure that I have condoms with me. And it's actually something that I've been shamed about before. Actually there was a situation where I had taken my daughter to West Africa, to Senegal. And I've been studying West African dance for 20 years. And I've, started traveling to Senegal about 8 years ago to study dance and learn more about the culture. And so, and I love Senegalese men, so of course I always I have condoms in my suitcase or wherever I travel. I mean, I keep a condom in my purse, it's like, because I want to be prepared. And I have certainly found myself many, many times in situations where it's like things are getting hot and heavy, and it's like, oh, I don't have a condom. Like the man says that. And then I'm like, well, okay, so
I do.
Well, it's either like, well, I do. And if I don't, it's like, well, then this isn't going any further,
Right.
So, we were in West Africa, and actually there was some tension down in the southern region where we were going to visit a village that I had gotten to know. And actually there was someone in the village that, I had an intimate connection with, and we were romantic at that time. And so I had condoms with me, and I remember all of our things got searched at this one point, and the man who was searching my bag pulled out these condoms and looked at me like, oh, really? And said something about oh, of course you have condoms. You're a white woman from America and West Africa, and it's like, I can still feel the shame in my body around that.
Yeah.
And actually what I've always done by carrying condoms with me is take a stand for my sexual health, because in my 20s, I was not so wise and not so smart with it, and spent many days in Planned Parenthood getting tested because I was paranoid that maybe I got something because I didn't have a condom or blah, 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 or like pregnancy tests or whatever. So ladies, it is, and gentlemen and everyone, everyone who's listening, it's like, let's be mindful of our sexual health and each other's sexual health, and like use condoms, until you're in a partnership where you're choosing that, you're going to be with that person and have safe sex without condoms. But yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not surprising that 40% of condom purchases are made by women. And then beyond that, it's like, what are these condoms made with? And because they're actually going to be going into our bodies, right? So,
yep.
So, yeah. So basically, did you bring this idea to your father, or was this something that you two sort of like brainstormed together?
It was something that we really came up with together. He had spent a lot of time sort of studying the condom industry from an environmental standpoint, and I really got excited and brought to the table this idea to really focus on women because of everything we're talking about. And I think that everything you're saying obviously resonates with all my experiences and all the work that we've done with Sustain, because there is this shame and there's this slut shaming that happens sometimes when women buy and carry condoms. And I think that what we've seen, which is amazing over the last 4 years of doing this and selling our product and having these conversations, is that it's starting to change. And it's really, a lot of it is just internalized, because of experiences we've had in our past, because of the way media or condoms are portrayed in the media or on, in the entertainment industry. And now I think what we're seeing from the Sustain perspective is that's starting to change with everything that's happening around the Me Too movement and this, the latest election cycle. Women are feeling more comfortable and more empowered buying and carrying condoms, as they should, because there's no reason you should take control of other aspects of your health and wellness, like diet and exercise and mental health, and then you should sort of like throw your sexual health out the window.
Yeah.
It's just as important. And there's no anyone, in my opinion, who's going to give you a hard time or make you feel uncomfortable for bringing a condom into the conversation is not someone you should be sleeping with anyways. I mean, they're saying that they don't respect your sexual health and well-being. Yeah. And I think that's, in my opinion, totally unacceptable.
Yeah, that's like, okay, you can move out of the line next, because another thing that I've talked a lot about on the podcast is just, having that conversation before you're sexual with someone. And like, when was the last time you've been tested? Have you slept with anyone unprotected? Because before I put you in my mouth or in my vagina, I want to make sure that like you're clean and you know exactly where you stand. And I've actually experienced many people not really either open to talk about it, not knowing when, sometime in the last year. And to me, that's not an acceptable response, Well,
and something I always say is like the times that you should be using condoms, like those moments, those sexual encounters, like I don't think it's going to be like the best sex of your life if you don't use a condom. Like we're talking mostly about casual sex. Like great. Like, I don't know about you, like in my experience and everybody I've talked to and all my friends, like that 2 a.m. hookup isn't going to be so changed because you didn't use a condom. Like it will be so changed for the worse. Like it's just not worth it. And with everything we're seeing around STDs are on the rise again for the 4th year in a row. Some of them are becoming resistant to antibiotics. Like, I just feel like it's just not worth it. Like, have a condom, carry condoms, use them. And anyone who gives you a hard time about it, it's just like next. Like, even just this idea of like, oh, we're going to trust that. I mean, there's some cool apps now where you can actually like show your partner in the moment your STD status based on how recently you were tested. And I think I still would recommend using condoms in those moments, but there's definitely innovation happening to really verify that somebody is STD free or has been tested recently. But it's just like one of those things where I'm just like, is it really going to like make, like your life is just going to be so much better if you don't use a condom?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not a matter of life and death here, people.
It's only going to be worse. Like it's, the negative outweighs the positive. I just feel like, and I think the thing is like, the more we have these conversations and the more people get comfortable saying, yes, we're definitely using a condom. And a lot of it is in advance. You have to have it with you, you know, don't wait till the 18th hour to like figure out who has or doesn't have a condom and like where you're going to get one from. But I just feel like there used to be this sort of, and it's still there, like generally accepted when people are like, oh yeah, I didn't use a condom last night. It's like, it's not cool.
Totally.
Like,
well,
cool.
And I just said something. I said it's not a matter of life and death. And what I want to clarify that statement, because what I mean is that it's not a matter of life and death to like have like using a condom can be a matter of life and death. But like whether or not the sex is going to be like that much greater without the condom, it's like use the freaking condom. You know, you don't know who you're sleeping with. Even if you know that person like fairly well, you may still not know what they're into and who they've been with. And like, so it actually is a matter of life and death, and, or could be. And with regards to life, you're also talking about the pregnancy piece. And I've been on different sides of the pregnancy equation. I have a 21-year-old and I've terminated as well. So like, it is no simple thing for a woman to become pregnant. Whatever they choose to do with that pregnancy, that is not light matter. And it's a big thing, you know, for every individual person to choose. If, you know, I mean, of course, women have miscarriages as well, but like, you know, to choose whether to keep a pregnancy or to terminate it, or, you know, that's a big choice. So you've got two really important pieces there, which is, you know, the sexual health piece and then the reproductive piece as well.
Yeah. And I think like that's a really good point, because whether it's pregnancy or, as I was mentioning earlier, like I also used to encounter this conversation among friends and obviously through work of like, okay, well, it's just like an STD, like I'll just take an antibiotic. And obviously I don't support that, but regardless, that's actually not even true anymore. And I think, you know, while I don't want to like sit here and scare people, antibiotics aren't working for all types of STDs anymore. STDs are becoming antibiotic resistant. And so it is actually and could be a much bigger problem, and maybe something you'll have for the rest of your life. I read some pretty crazy statistics, which I can't find now, about like in the next 10 years, like what percentage of the population will have permanent STDs. And it's, you know, you can manage it, but it's just, again, it's like, is that like 2 a.m. sex worth it? Like,
exactly.
I feel like not, like probably not.
Yeah.
But like, that's just me. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all important, and I think we're making a lot of progress. And I think that like women, you know, we don't feel ashamed, don't feel like, I mean, the average number of seconds that somebody stands in the condom aisle is about 7 seconds. So it's hard, you know, I get it. Like I've been there. I don't love just like, I mean, I chill in the family planning aisle all the time now, obviously, because I just like love condoms. But, you know, it's just like, it's okay to feel uncomfortable and recognize that, but that doesn't mean it should stop you from buying condoms and carrying them with you. And obviously now with Sustain, it's so easy because you can just go to sustainnatural.com and buy them online.
Yes. So and you can use Ignite, the word Ignite, to get 20% off. So I just want to let our listeners know that we have a discount code, which is super awesome. Thank you so much, Meika. So if you want to try any of Sustain's products, just use the code Ignite when you check out and you'll get 20% off. So like, speaking of condoms, yeah, you no longer have to stand in the freaking drugstore and get condoms. If that's not something that you're comfortable with, you can order them online. So yeah, so we'll have all of that information in the show notes, but just so you have it now, the website again, Meika, it's Sustain Natural.
Yep, sustainnatural.com.
Okay, cool. And then use Ignite as the discount code. Well, so like the thing is like, there's like a couple of different things that I'm seeing here, and I want to get to your book because you've covered some really juicy topics in your book, but we're talking about like reclaiming our sexuality, keeping our sexual health top of heart and mind, and mining our sexual health as much as we mine all of the other, meditation and yoga and food and diet and exercise. Just, it's like we're mining all of it holistically together because it all feeds each other. And I know that like any issues that I've ever had or scares that I've ever had around sexual health can impact me like it consumes me, right? So like, why even bother with any of that? Just like being in our power, reclaiming our sexuality, saying like, we're going to choose when, where, how, and be mindful of like using condoms, having whatever birth control, additional birth control, contraception that we're comfortable with or not, and just like owning it and being powerful in that. So something else that you talk about, so you published a book this spring, right?
I wrote a book that was published in March.
Yep.
Which was like Vagina. It was Vagina 101, but it was all about sort of taking control of your sexual and reproductive health.
That's amazing. Okay, so the name of your book is Get on Top of Your Pleasure, Sexuality, and Wellness, a Vagina Revolution. Talk to us about this book.
A Vagina Revolution. I forgot about that part of the title, but yes. Well, the book was sort of just as everything we've been talking about. I've spent the last 5 years working on first starting this business and then running Sustain and building the business. And basically what happened was via our customer service channels, via, my conversations just with women I was interacting with at conferences, the media, like I basically have had so many conversations with particularly young women about sex and sexual health and reproductive health and vaginas. And I'm not a doctor, obviously. So I wanted to partner with doctors and really basically answer a lot of the questions that kept coming up. And the interesting thing to me was like, it's not like people are asking these crazy, challenging, philosophical, or like super medical questions. The questions that people kept coming to me with were really just very basic sexual and reproductive health questions. And like some of them are quirky, like a lot of the we've gotten this question a lot, like, is masturbating cheating? Which I always just think is a funny one. But
interesting.
Like, how does birth control work? And like, how does the pill work versus the IUD versus this versus that? Like there wasn't to me a place where we could send people to just give them sort of a high level overview of everything they needed to know about their vaginas. And, it's not a book for people who are thinking about having sex for the first time. Like it's not a coming of age book. It's really a book for like 20 and 30 and 40-year-old women who are having sex, who are dealing with all of this stuff around pleasure and birth control and like your vagina getting dry over time and all of that stuff. And so the book was really just like that, like it just a place where we could send people and where I felt like I could really dig in with experts to answer a lot of these questions that I'd been hearing for years.
That's amazing. Well, and you've got some interesting, I don't know if they're like hard stats, but just with regards to lube, because Sustain also makes an all natural lube that's made for women, like for women's bodies, because a lot of lube that's out on the market has crap in it that can actually cause like bacterial vaginosis and other issues. So let's just get into the lube conversation for a second.
Love lube. Well, the thing we always say at Sustain is treat your vagina better than your face.
Ooh, I love that.
and the reason for that is some of the stuff you were saying. I think a lot of us have been hearing these buzzwords over the last, probably 5 to 10 years, glycerin, parabens, petrochemicals, silicone, like things that we've been told to avoid when it comes to our skincare products. And so I sort of say you should take the same rule of thumb when it comes to your lubricant, because the reality is most lubricants on the market contain things like petrochemicals and glycerin and other ingredients, fragrances that actually can harm rather than help your body. So when you're thinking about why you would want to use a lubricant, obviously either you have vaginal dryness, you're just looking for some extra slipperiness while you're having sex, which is great. But you definitely want to be wary of what you're using, because your vagina is, a delicate part of your body. And when you start adding things into your vagina that can throw off, everybody has like a pH level, right? So most vaginas fall within a certain range. And a lot of the lubricants on the market actually have a much higher pH or a much lower pH, and the ingredients in the lubricant causes a lot of that. And so when your vagina comes into contact with something that has sort of like an incompatible pH level, it starts to overproduce bad bacteria just as a reaction to this sort of incompatibility. And for some people, if your vagina continues to produce this overgrowth of bad bacteria and, quote unquote, your vagina gets sick, it actually can cause things like bacterial vaginosis, which I think 84% of women who have it don't even know they have it. So it's definitely important to use something that's compatible with your vagina's pH. And then obviously I prefer organic ingredients. So Sustain has an organic water and aloe-based lubricant, which is also compatible from a pH level standpoint.
That's awesome. So, and it's interesting because I actually personally haven't really, I don't know. I haven't used lube in such a long time. So I'm actually like, maybe I'm also like really not having a ton of sex at the moment, but like actually like intercourse. So I'm going to make a commitment. I'm hereby committed through the end of this year to like experiment more with lube, because I have always been a little bit tentative about it because I wasn't sure, like, what is it made with? And, but I've certainly heard that lube is better than using like an oil, like an almond oil or coconut oil, because that can that actually break down, not only possibly break down like the condom, the effectiveness of the condom, but could that also impact the pH balance as well? Or do you know much about that?
Yeah. So basically the thing about, I don't know as much in terms of the lubricants, in terms of the alternatives like coconut oil and almond oil and from a pH standpoint. What I do know is that using those types of oils actually makes latex disintegrate. So we recommend, and I'm mostly familiar with lubricants that are compatible with latex, but I don't know so much about the pH of those.
Okay.
And I don't know if I know a lot of people are using those types of alternatives, and I don't know what sort of the industry and medical standard is on using them.
Got it. Okay. Well, so I'm curious as well, because it sounds like you have focused section of your book to matter-of-fact conversations on masturbation. And I know for me, I couldn't even say the word masturbation until my late 20s. Like, it was just like the word itself conjured up so much just like shame and like these like yucky feelings, even though I've been self-pleasuring since I can remember. So I'm curious, like, in your research as you were writing the book and then in what you chose to put in the book, can you give us some insight into that conversation about masturbation?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I think it's still hard for a lot of people to talk about. I would love to say that I just can sit around and talk about masturbation all day, but for me, it still even has like a little bit of a funny, like it has like a funny, like I like giggle when I say it, or it's definitely, women, I think when you think about it just from like how men or boys grow up, like always like touching themselves, and girls are like, that's not a thing. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, like she always has her hands down her pants. Whereas with boys,
and if she did,
like,
it would probably be a problem
for people. Yeah. So yeah, listen, I think I think that it's a great thing. I think that the more you actually like talk about it with your friends, your doctor, whoever you want to talk about, your partner, like I think more people are doing it than everybody may think. And so I think it's worth talking about. I definitely think it's worth like exploring your own body. I feel like every sexual encounter between couples or partners or just two people is always potentially better and more enjoyable if you know what you like. So I think it's just like I always say, just start talking about it and go buy a vibrator. I haven't met anybody who has said that that's been a bad decision. So I would recommend that as a starting point. Great. So maybe you don't need to talk about it and you can just go online and buy a vibrator.
Totally. Yeah. And just explore. I mean, it's like the more comfortable that we can be with our own bodies, then the more comfortable we are with other people with our bodies, and actually like talking about what we like, what we don't like, and, you know, like how all of that happens in the dance of like intimacy, sex, romance, love. So, okay. So another thing that I'm just so honor and respect about you and your business is that you have a whole social aspect. So you've got a pay it forward initiative where a percentage of your sales go to support Planned Parenthood and another organization. I forget the name. Could you share a little bit more with us about that?
Yeah. So when we started Sustain, we started 10% for women because there's about 21 million women just in the US who lack access to reproductive health care and family planning services. And, you know, while I'd love to think that Sustain could change the game all on its own, it's really important that we work with nonprofits, specifically organizations like Planned Parenthood, because they're the experts. They're the experts when it comes to care. They've been doing this for much longer than we have. And we really feel like in order to completely change the landscape around reproductive health and reproductive rights, we need those types of partners. So we give 10% of our pre-tax profits to those types of organizations. And it's just, you know, it's become, we have this formal program, 10% for women, but it's really become a lot more than that. I spend personally a lot of time advocating and lobbying for things like the FDA to require tampon and pad manufacturers to disclose their ingredients.
Thank you for doing that work.
It's, you know, for me, I feel like in order to really move the industry and move society to a place that I will be happy and excited about bringing potentially, you know, a child of my own into the world one day, it takes a lot more than just focusing on growing our business. So that's just really become, activism is part of Sustain's DNA. And it's definitely something I'm extremely passionate about.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, because if you don't know, now you know that the FDA does not require tampon companies to disclose what exactly is actually in the tampons that women put in their bodies, and they sit in their bodies in the most absorbent part of the female anatomy for 4 to 8 hours at a time. And not only that, but like I was actually talking with my mom and my sisters about this, recording this conversation with you this morning. And my mom was like, oh yeah, I remember that family's daughter died from toxic shock syndrome because she left her tampon in too long. And I mean, you know, like we're talking about like young women who've lost their lives because they left tampons in too long. And then also that issue of like, what the hell is in the tampon that's sitting in my body? And you think over time, like how many tampons you're actually using, if that's what you use. And it's like, okay, well, what is the impact of that over time?
I mean, I think that's one of the craziest things to me. And what most people don't realize is exactly what you said. There's no requirement for tampon or condom companies to disclose their ingredients. And, you know, if you're a tampon user, you'll have a tampon sitting inside of you in total for about 6 years of your life.
Wow.
Which is a long time.
That's crazy. Holy crap.
So I think obviously, ideally, the regulation would be in place that companies have to actively disclose their ingredients. They have to do long-term testing on if the ingredients that they're using, how they impact women's bodies over time. But in the absence of that, it's really on you as an individual you can support the work of getting this legislation passed. So there is requirement of these companies to disclose their ingredients. But in the meantime, you should take it upon yourself to really educate yourself on choosing brands that are actively disclosing. And from there, you can make a decision about, what types of products you want to use. But it's really important. And I think it's just totally absurd that consumers don't have access to that information.
Absolutely.
And so we use the safest ingredient possible, 100% organic cotton, because it's just that simple.
Yeah.
One ingredient, no pesticides.
Yeah, it's like just what you would want to use, right? And it's like what you would want to use, Meika, what you would want the women in your life to use, what you would, it's like, and then forwarding that into the world, right? And because the reality is there has been a lot of shame and just like, I would say like a more of a disempowering relationship to menstruation and women's periods. And actually that is why we have life, right? So like life comes from this experience of women menstruating. And so it's like the more that we all can rewire our brains with relationship to our own menstruation and be more empowered around it, and then empower the women and the young women in our lives, then it's like we all claim our power. We all claim our sexual health. We all start to be like really powerful. And then that moves into the community, into the spaces of the people that we come into contact with. And it just has a ripple effect. So you are having a ripple effect in what you've created with Sustain, Meika, and it has really been an honor to have you on the line today. I just am so grateful for the work that you're doing in the world. And how can people find you online?
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for having me. All of our products are available at sustainnatural.com. And as you mentioned, use code IGNITE for 20% off your first purchase. So sustainnatural.com and then code IGNITE.
Great. Okay, cool. And then just tell our audience again all of the products that you currently have on the website.
So we have a lot, but our main products are our fair trade, sustainably produced condoms, organic cotton tampons. We just launched organic cotton period underwear. We also have lubricant and wipes and everything you should need for your sex and period needs.
Amazing. And is there anything coming up in 2019 that you can share with us? Anything that we can look forward to from Sustain?
We have a very, very exciting product launch in early November, which I can't say what it is, but it will be the most sustainable period option out there. Amazing.
Cool. Well, we can't wait to hear about it. Meika, thank you so much for joining us today. And Ignite Intimacy Community, you heard it here. Check out sustainnatural.com. Use coupon code IGNITE for 20% off of your first purchase. And just check out everything that Sustain is up to. You can follow Sustain on Instagram or Facebook at Sustain. And if you have any questions whatsoever, holler at us, hello@igniteintimacy.com. We're so grateful that you joined us for this powerful conversation. And Meika, again, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. And Ignite Intimacy Community, stay blessed and ciao for now. Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.